Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Weekly Hope. It's Kirsten Hagland here, your host, and we're so glad that you're here for the first episode of the new year. It's 2019. I hope that all of you that are watching this had a fabulous holiday season and a really exciting new year and are not listening to any of those diet messages, resolution, new year, new you kind of chatter, but are just focusing on self-compassion and celebrating all of the gifts of this season and looking forward to ways to rock recovery in the new year, to stay committed to those goals and to just be a light to others as well. So all of our love to all of you in this new year in 2019, and we're really, really glad that you are joining us again for this special episode. So before we dive into our topic and I introduce our guest, want to tell you a little bit about the show if this is your first time joining us. So Weekly Hope started in May of last year, 2018, and what we do is we bring on guests to interview professionals, clinicians, experts in the field of eating disorder, recovery, and mental health, advocates, people with their own recovery stories, just people from across the spectrum of the mental health field. And we interview them on different topics, like to get their insight, wisdom, perspective, and also give you the opportunity to ask questions, to share your thoughts and comments. And that is obviously such a really wonderful thing about the medium of Facebook Live is it gives you the opportunity to share, to say hello, and to ask questions of these incredible people that we have on. So I will keep reminding you throughout the broadcast to pop in, say hello, let us know where you're signing in from, tell us your name, tell us a little bit about your story. We really, really love to hear from you and want to make this as conversational as possible. So don't hesitate to say hello. And if you're watching this video later, and we're not live anymore, still let us know where you're signing in from, what your name is, what your story is, and ask questions because we do go back and look at the questions and try to get you the resources that you need. So basically the message of that is don't be shy. We want to hear from you. So, all right, without any further ado, I want to introduce our guest and dive into our topic because our guest has a really, really incredible story and something different than we've ever really covered on this show before. And we're very, very excited to hear from her, to share her wisdom. And also we have an exciting thing to offer with our guest this time. If you stay tuned, you'll find out more about a book giveaway that we are actually going to be doing with our guest. So that's a big part of what we are doing. So make sure to stick with us, because I'm going to give you all of the instructions to sign up to get a free copy of one of her books. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen here and welcome our guest. There is Dr. Wai Jia Tam on the other side of the screen. Hello there.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Kristen.
So first I'm going to read a little bit of your bio so that people have a little bit of a window into who you are and what you do before we chat. So Wai Jia Tam was selected as Forbes Asia 2016 30 Under 30 as a young change maker. She is the founder and CEO of Kite Song Global, an international nonprofit that helps people set their dreams free. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. As a humanitarian doctor, an inspirational speaker, and the author and illustrator of 4 picture books which raise funds and awareness for those in need, Wai Jia's passion for helping communities comes from the authentic struggle with depression and recovery from anorexia. She has a master's of public health from Johns Hopkins University and a master's in theology. So, no big deal. Quite an impressive resume, and we are very, very glad to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I always love sharing where our guests are signing in from. So where are you joining us from today?
I am actually joining you not from my home, which is in Singapore, far, far away. Right now, I'm actually based in Canada. That's where my husband is from. So it's near Toronto in a little suburb called Mississauga. Yeah, that's where I'm from now.
So we've got Zurich sitting here, we've got Canada, but originally hailing from Singapore, and then we've got Melanie, who's joining us from Statesboro, Georgia. Wonderful. Hi, Melanie. Thank you for for being here. And also we have the Kirsten Hagland Foundation, which is usually my mom, who is thank you so much. Mom says exciting. And for those of you who are just joining us, feel free to pop in at any time, say hello to us, let us know your name, where you're coming from, and if you have any questions for our guests. So Wai Jia, first, Kite Song Global, obviously that is your organization and what you're very much passionate about. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, my journey began a long time ago when I was 18 years old, but it feels so fresh in my memory because it was such a life-changing event. So at that time, I was feeling, really lost. I didn't know who I was, struggling with identity. And one day I just decided that I wanted to do something more with my life. And it just came from a sense of emptiness, of not knowing who I was and searching for, and I know it might sound a little silly or weird, but I was just searching for who God is or what's our life meaning about. And so I was given this opportunity to visit a children's home overseas. And I just made a couple of cold calls to different organizations that I found on Google, really. And when I called them, they offered me, all these exotic places to go and volunteer. And then I asked them a question. I said, is there anywhere which you need help in, which no one wants to go? And they said, we need help in Nepal because right now there is, the Maoist uprising and there are lots of political instability. So no volunteers want to go there. And I said something really silly. I said, can I go? And it was crazy because my parents flipped out, obviously. I grew up in a very sheltered, middle income family. We're very, very comfortable. I'd never done anything crazy like that. But my parents, I think they were so moved by just my persistence in asking them. And eventually, through a series of kind of divine events, they actually sent me with their blessings. And while I was there, something amazing happened because I lived in a children's home for 6 weeks with girls who had been abused and abandoned, and they were beaten. And yet I saw such joy on their faces. And it was so bizarre to me. I was like, I can't imagine them being joyful. And it was funny because in the home we were in, you could hear all these bomb blasts going outside. And when you looked outside, you could see like people burning flags, and there were curfews, and there were water cuts and power outages. And yet there was so much joy in the house. It was unbelievable. And then one day, the house parents, who really inspired me by their sacrifice and their surrender, just to give up their comfortable lives overseas to come and live with the children and raise them as their own, they told me that we had to move. And I was like, what? And they said, yeah, it's really common that, about once a year, the landlord would evict them because there's basically a stigma on unwanted girls in Nepal. And so every year they would find a reason to kind of evict them. And I said, what does this mean? And they said, this means that actually we need to disenroll the children from school, we need to move, we need to find a new place, and we need to do this all in a very short amount of time. And at that time, my heart broke. My heart broke because all these girls that I had met, they had dreams the same as I did. At that time, I was applying to medical school, and these girls would tell me that, Didi's older sister, they said, Didi Wai Jia, I want to be a doctor like you, or I want to be a nurse, I want to be a teacher. And these girls were so remarkable. In spite of all they had been through in their childhood, they were topping their standards. It was unbelievable. And yet, every time they moved, it meant that they had to, their whole lives were destabilized. They had to get out of school, go into a new school. And I won't forget this moment when I saw all the girls carrying their belongings to the truck. For us, when we move, we just call the movers and they move our stuff. Yeah. But for them, I saw the smallest little girl, a 3-year-old girl called Joy. She was picking up her socks and underwear and running to the truck because everybody had to help out. And I just won't forget that image. Because at that point in time, I asked the house parents, I said, what can I do to help? And I just find it incredible that they were so honest with me because, who was I? I was like an 18-year-old girl. I didn't know anything about the world, really. And he told me, he said, we need a house. We need a permanent house. So if you could pray for us for a house, that would be great.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know where I'm going to get a house from. Yeah. And the scary part was that he said it would cost more than $100,000 to get a piece of land, to have a home you could call their own. But I remember as I went back to Singapore, my heart was just so heavy. And as I left for the airport, in Nepal, actually, we were still in Nepal, I just turned back and I looked at him and I said, you know what? I have this crazy idea that I want to paint a picture book called Kite Song and raise funds for a home for you. Is that okay? And as I said it, I just felt so silly. I didn't know what his reaction was going to be. But what surprised me was that he said, you have to do this. He said, you have to. And he said, as soon as you get off that plane, I want you to meet this person who helps us with the home here, and he's going to refer you to somebody else. And sure enough, when I landed, it was actually my birthday. And I was referred to a publisher whom I had never met and didn't know anything about. And when he saw my sketches, which I had done on the plane, really, he said, I will sponsor 2,000 copies of the book if you can learn how to paint better, because I brought him some of my old paintings and they were so bad.
I'm sure they were better than mine would ever be, ever.
Oh, well, we'll have to see about that.
I'm a horrible artist.
But it was amazing because when he said those words, it suddenly gave me hope. And within 3 months, the book Kite Song, which is this book actually, this book called Kite Song was published. And I don't know how it happened, because some people say like, oh, you must have been very resourceful, you must have networked, but the fact of the matter was that everything happened in such a divine way. Like I never did any marketing, I never did fundraising or soliciting, and it just spread by word of mouth. And in the following 3 months, more than $100,000 was raised through the book. They built a home in Nepal, and the girls now have graduated from the home, the girls that I met. And I wish I could show you this picture. There's a picture. It's actually just my living room. I should bring it, but there's a picture of the same girls sitting 10 years apart in almost the same positions. And right now they're nurses, they're teachers, they're doing bookkeeping. And it's just so heartening to see how a little dream, like a little tiny little dream, can make a big difference. And I think that's how Kite Song came about. It was really my heart to help people see that it's not about us. It's not about what you can offer or what you have. Because when you think about that, it's always overwhelming. I didn't know how to paint. I didn't know publishing. I didn't know any of that. And who's gonna listen to me? People can't even pronounce my name properly, half the time. Like, who am I? Yeah. But it's really about something bigger out there. Yeah, so that's how my journey to Kite Song began.
I love that story, and I love the way that you took a big risk and were like, well, where does nobody want to go? And you just went, and then you let yourself be challenged in that way, and just kind of put yourself out there and did it. And I'd love for you to now share a little bit about then your recovery process, because the lessons that you shared that you learned, and about taking those risks and realizing it's not all about you, and pouring your life out for others and finding meaning in that. There's so many things, or so many ways that also applies to your recovery journey, right? And any recovery journey, especially from an eating disorder. So how did that struggle manifest itself for you? And then I know that your passion for writing books and illustration then didn't just apply to the home, but you've also now made it a part of your work in mental health advocacy as well.
Yes. Wow. Well, that's a power-packed question, Kristen.
Yeah.
So when I came back, I was actually on a high. I thought like, wow, life is incredible. Like there are amazing things that can happen in the world. And what happened was that I went into medical school, and things started to go downhill from there because I started to live away from home. My family at the time, actually, I didn't know this. My parents were trying to protect me by not telling me. But what happened was that there was a huge business crisis that happened in our family, and I didn't know about it. And they were trying to protect me by not telling me, but there was a lot of tension at home, which I couldn't understand. And being away and also being in medical school, I realized that it was so hard to do well. It was hard.
Medical school's hard. It's hard. Yeah, right?
I really struggled. And I realized that one way that I could cope with all these things, because so many things were going out of control, I had very little control of what I could control. I realized that, you know what, going out for a run really makes me feel good. So I did that. It started off very innocuously. It was very innocent, harmless. I just went out for a run. I came home. And then I realized that, hey, you know what? I felt good. And people started complimenting me. You know, you're really healthy, you look really good. And as time went by, I realized that, hey, you know, this is a really good coping mechanism. But what I didn't realize was that coupled with the depression and the heaviness that was sinking into my life, that sense of isolation, it kind of manifests itself into restricted eating. And I realized that, hey, you know what? I can control what I eat, and it makes me feel good. And I didn't realize this at the time, but I was in such a state of denial. So my friends were all telling me, you know, that is there something wrong, Wai Jia? You know, you're losing so much weight. You know, can you tell us? Can we help you? And I was like, I'm fine. I don't see any problems with that. But also, a lot of deep things in my life were starting to emerge. That was the time I realized that I had issues with identity. There was a lot of great expectations placed on myself to always be perfect. And not being able to reconcile that, I think, manifests itself in the eating disorder. And I remember one day sitting in my dorm in the university, and I thought to myself, I'm not going to graduate from medical school. My life is a complete mess. And that night, I remember I just wanted to give up. I thought to myself that if I ended my life, it would just be a lot better for everyone, because I didn't know what was happening to myself. And I thought about Kite Song. I thought about all my dreams to do, you know, humanitarian work, and just thought to myself, I don't understand. And I think looking back, I realized that so much of recovery is filled with moments like these, where there's such a great disparity. There is so much we want to do in life, and yet there is so much pain and darkness. And I think one of the greatest lessons that I learned in recovery is that use your dreams to give you hope and light. Because the only thing that I held on to was that I felt that God gave me a life for a reason, and my life is not my own. Then I realized that, wow, all these dreams, where do they come from? They come from outside of me. They come from way outside of me. And there's so much more to life than just me. And when I focused on that, I realized that that gave me such a big push to want to get well, even though I didn't know how at the time.
Yeah. And how did that happen for you? I mean, because that's, and you know, I'm sure there are probably people that are either watching this now or are going to be watching this later who do find themselves in university, or like I was in the middle of ballet, you know, or in an environment where, okay, how do you get well in this very, very, you know, what can be a toxic environment? How did you do recovery then?
Wow. My turning point came actually when my publisher's wife asked me for lunch, and she was very perceptive. She looked at me and she said, "You need to get help." And I was, you know, I was in complete denial. I said, "No, I don't." And I think that's what the eating disorder does. It kind of blinds you. It makes you see everything from a very distorted lens. But she challenged me. She said, "If there's nothing wrong with you, go see a professional. And if there's nothing wrong with you, they'll discharge you."
Yeah.
Yeah, so I took her up on that challenge, and I think the biggest hurdle really is taking that first step, saying that I need help, reaching out, whether it's, online support group or actually seeing a professional. There's always all these thoughts like, it's too expensive, I'm not worth it, I don't have the time, or I don't need to see someone. But the truth is that if somebody says that there's something wrong, or if you smell that, that could be, why not just give it a shot?
Yeah.
Why not just give it a shot? And so I went, and it was harrowing because it was in the middle of medical school. And the funny part was I was receiving treatment at a center where a lot of my own classmates were doing medical rotations through. And so I was always afraid that I would bump into them or something. But the medical professionals were very, very kind to me. They were very gracious, and they really helped me to, maintain privacy and confidentiality. But I think one thing that I learned as well is that it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. You can be, a famous student at your school. You can be someone very high up in your profession. You can be even from a helping profession. But eating disorders don't discriminate.
Yeah.
And the powerful thing is that when you recover, you become a voice in your own field saying that I can recover and there's no stigma. It's okay.
And can you, do you have also there Taste of Rainbow?
Yes, I do actually.
Because I love this book. When Jacqueline and I first talked with you and you showed us your books, and this book is just so, so cool. So just tell us a little bit about, and also just want to say, Melanie says, great job. I'll get back and finish watching on my way to work now. Proud of you. So thanks, Melanie, for your encouragement. Also, Barbara posted and said a song about inner demons. So thank you, Barbara, for sharing that. Also just want to say again to everyone, if you have a question for Wai Jia or something that you want to share, feel free at any time to post that or just tell us hello and where you're signing in from. All right, Taste of Rainbow. Tell us about it and show us a few of the pictures.
Oh, I would love to. So this is a Taste of Rainbow. I'm going to show you the first page actually. It says, I love ice cream. And this little girl was actually...
A little higher. Can you hold it up a little higher? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So this little girl was actually me. And I love to paint while I was recovering. And so I painted a series of different paintings. I'm going to show you some of the more powerful ones. But, it says, I love ice cream, especially ice cream with rainbow sprinkles. And it's a book about the journey about a little girl, and she kind of goes through this journey where she realizes that she doesn't feel good enough for anyone or anything, and one day she decides that she just loses hope. And I think this is a page that a lot of people can relate to. She always feels like she needs to be a little bit more beautiful. And she says, good girls, they never get mad or sad. And sometimes it feels like the storm will never end. Yeah. But it will.
Such beautiful illustrations.
Thank you. Faith never lets you down. Hold on. And it ends off with a little girl who realizes that if you really look, you'll find something so beautiful inside of you. And everybody deserves a taste of rainbow, including me.
Love it. It's so beautiful. And I made your picture bigger so that people could see some of the illustrations a little bit more. So incredibly talented. And how was this helpful in your recovery?
Wow, this was really key to my recovery because as I painted, I realized that I could express myself. And the funny thing was that when I finished the first draft, I submitted it to my publisher, and it was very telling because she told me that I wasn't well, because the ending was not like this. The ending was still, about wanting to be more beautiful outside and inside, but it wasn't quite the ending of somebody who had fully recovered. So they returned it to me and they said, there needs to be a little bit more work in you before this happens. And when I was finally ready, I remember I had cold feet because I was just about to graduate, and suddenly a lot of people were telling me, you can't publish this book. If you publish it, people will know that you were a patient, and right now you're going to apply for residency, which is very competitive. They'll think you have a mental health issue. If it goes public, it's going to be terrible. And I grew up in a very conservative Asian kind of cultural background, and so these things are not talked about. They're just not. And so as a medical professional going out telling the story, it just sounded so ridiculous. And I remember, that afternoon, my publisher actually called me and he said, I need to know, is it a go or not? You have to decide. And I was so confused. I remember crying over the phone because I remember even family members were telling me, like, if you talk about this outside, it's like hanging dirty linen. It's a very taboo thing, especially in Chinese culture. I'm not from China, but my ethnicity is Chinese. So culturally, there's a lot of ideas about, not sharing dirty linen. Like, I feel like now that I'm in the West, I feel like sometimes it's even glamorous to talk about your problems. Unfortunately, when taken to the other extreme, right? But then I came from the other extreme, unfortunately, where you don't talk about these things. But I remember something that really motivated me was when someone told me and said, this could help somebody else out there, even one person. And I remember I felt so small at the time. I felt so confused, so lost. And I just told my publisher over the phone, I said, let's just do it. Let's just do it. And the crazy thing is that after so many years, like after the book was published, it went on like a little national campaign. After that, when it died down, I always asked myself, is this useful? Did I make the right decision? Does it help people? Is it gaining any traction? Does it have any purpose? And now, many, many years later, it's been like 8 years later. Actually, that's where I got connected to you I didn't meet you, but I met your lovely parents at the Hungry for Hope conference, because when I was doing my master's program in America, a lady walked in by accident into my professor's office and picked up this copy of the book. And she referred me to her sister-in-law, who was a psychiatrist, who then referred me to Constance, who runs Finding Balance, the NGO. And she invited me as the keynote speaker to Nashville to speak at a eating disorder conference for women. And so it took 8 years for me to see how this book was useful and impactful. And now it's being used in some treatment centers in the US, where together with therapists, it's being used with facilitation guides to help people in recovery to kind of process their thoughts and their emotions. And so I'm sharing this because I feel like a lot of us who are struggling always feel that, what does my pain amount to? Mm-hmm. We ask ourselves, like, what am I going through this for? And I hope this brings you a little bit of encouragement that your pain has a purpose. Your pain has a purpose that is way bigger than what you think or dare to dream of. And you might think, I've been recovered for 1 year or 1 month or 2 years, and it's not doing anybody any good. Maybe I'll just go back to it or whatever. But the key really is, you just don't know what your life story is going to do for someone else. Mm-hmm. So keep going, keep at it, and make your pain count.
No, it's so amazing. And, we could literally talk all day, and I have so many other things that I want to ask you that I know now we're not going to get to, because I want to talk about your podcast, and then I want to talk about the book giveaway. So first, let's and we have some people saying that your story is so powerful and so beautiful. Mm-hmm. So first, you've got some really cool projects that you're working on. One of them is a podcast. So yeah. I did put in the Facebook post at the top there, obviously a link to Wai Jia's website as well as her book and podcast. But why don't you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing, and in particular, give us a pitch for your podcast?
Sure, thank you. So recently I started an organization called Kite Song Global, and it really is, it just has a very simple, mission, which is to help people set their dreams free. And it's to ignite hope and inspire faith in different people. So I've done 4 books. The first one was Kite Song. The second one was Rainbow. The third one, I Love You, was actually launched on our wedding day, and it was used to raise funds for 2 anti-sex trafficking ministries, one in Cambodia and one in India. And the last one, Savor, is used in tertiary institutions and workplaces to really challenge our ideals of success. So really, all these messages are filled with stories of inspiration that I hope can inspire people to really think about their lives and the greater purpose behind it. And so the podcast was something very recent, actually, because when I moved to Canada, I actually went through a very difficult and dark time. I'm actually in my 3rd trimester now, so I think the hormones also played a part when I moved, and yeah, and I just felt that, you know what, at that point in time when I felt so down, the ironic thing was that I was being asked to give talks and podcast interviews. I was being invited to speak at different conferences, and I was like, I don't feel up to it, but I'll do it anyway. And I realized that the podcast became kind of a burden for me, because I realized that you don't have to be 100% or 150% all the time in order to do something to help others. And I just realized that, wow, no matter how small we think we are, because I kept wondering, is anybody going to listen to it? Is it going to make an impact? But then a friend challenged me, and she said, if one person listened to your podcast and his or her life was changed, would it be worthwhile? And I said, yeah, I would. So I'll do it. And that's what led me to do it. And I'm hoping that this series of messages will really help to inspire hope and ignite faith in people, because it's going to be a series of miraculous stories and testimonies in my life, and I hope will help to set the dreams of other people free.
Yeah, amazing. So cool. And that link is in the description on the Facebook post. And just before we let Wai Jia go, do want to let you know, if you're listening to this, we are going to do a book giveaway of Taste of Rainbow. What Dr. Tam has very, very graciously agreed to do this. So if you are interested, please, I'm going to write an email here, my email. You're going to email us your name and your mailing address. To this email. It's Kirsten@eatingdisorderhope.com. Let us know your name, mailing address. I'm going to put it in the comment section as well. Hold on one second. Book giveaway. Email Kirsten@eatingdisorderhope.com. And on our next episode of Weekly Hope, which is going to be next Wednesday, we're going to announce the winner of that book giveaway live on the show. So, and our next week episode of Weekly Hope is Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. So we want to get one of these beautiful books into your hands. So if you would enjoy it, if there's someone that you know and love who is in recovery from an eating disorder who you know would be inspired by Dr. Wai Jia Tam's story and her book, let us know, and we will select a winner and announce that next Wednesday. So there's the email. I'll be looking forward to hearing from you. And so, Wai Jia, thank you so much for taking the time to share.
It was a privilege.
For your beautiful heart and story. And just last question before we let you go. If there's someone listening to this and they're in a really, really dark place right now, especially maybe after the holidays, and the holidays are wonderful, but can also be tough because then there's this huge let down after everything's over. If there's someone who's really struggling right now in a dark place, maybe in the place that you were when you were just like, why, maybe the world would be better off without me. How can you encourage them right now?
Wow. Well, I just want to say one thing, which is there is a purpose for your life far greater than you ever dared imagine. But would you step out in faith, a little bit of faith to believe that? Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kristen.
You are so welcome. Hope you have a beautiful, wonderful day. Stay healthy and strong.
Thank you.
And give your family our love. And we will thank you for being such a good friend to Eating Disorder Hope.
Oh, it's a privilege. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, Wai Jia.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Kristen.
So just want to say thank you all so much for watching. Thanks for tuning in to hear Wai Jia's story. And just want to reiterate, her book is so beautiful. And really, really would be an inspiration to you or to someone you love. So if you're interested, to make sure to go ahead and email me, Kirsten@eatingdisorderhope.com, and we'll pick a winner and announce that next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. All right. Hope wherever you are in the world that you have a wonderful day and rest of your week, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Weekly Hope.